Ministry funds run out. The only sound in the room was the monotonous voice on the cassette player of someone reading the Bible. All of the brothers now understood quite a bit of what they were hearing. At first, they had all looked at the cassette player as though they were hearing a foreign language. Now they could diligently follow along in their Bibles with what they were hearing. However, on this particular day, everyone looked somehow distracted. Brother Moody's eyes were already drooping, and he seemed preoccupied. I wanted to correct him, but I didn't want to bother the other brothers who were diligently reading the Bible as they listened to the audio tape. But Moody began nodding his head, and soon Brother Choi was nodding as well. I clapped my hands twice. The two brothers woke up and straightened themselves up. Brother Ikdu, who was sitting in the corner, was sitting straight, but he didn't seem to be concentrating on the verses. Instead, he was looking at something else while turning the pages. He was busy looking at the pictures in the Bible. Brother Choi was looking blankly out a window. His behavior bothered me. He sat there like that for a long time, then stealthily got up and went to the restroom. The restroom had become a haven whenever they were bored. After the early morning Bible reading, followed by lunch, everyone hurried into their shared bedrooms. They snored loudly as they slept. Then, they barely got up for the late afternoon Bible reading. In truth, following the rules of the mission center and keeping the daily routines was very difficult for these men. For people whose only enjoyment in life had been drinking and smoking, the sudden deprivation of these pleasures was in a sense very cruel. Furthermore, telling people, accustomed to wandering around here and there, to sit still in one place and read the Bible for 8 hours every day could sound like torture. It was only natural that they continually resisted. To prevent them from smoking, I sent only instructor Kwang and brother Gil-ho, who was Korean Chinese, for the groceries. I don't know about drinking, but as far as smoking is concerned, it is very painful when you can't smoke all of a sudden. Some of the brothers complained when they couldn't bear the pain. "Teacher, is there a verse in the Bible that says people shouldn't smoke? Please allow us to smoke." A brother even came alone to my room one night without letting the other brothers know and pleaded, "Teacher, I'm sorry. Dear missionary, please let me smoke just once. I ask for nothing more, or else I don't think I can be here any longer because I can't smoke." Another brother caused a commotion several times and threatened to leave the mission center. I was concerned about what would happen if he left, but I continued while looking to the Lord for everything. There were so many things I was thankful to the Lord about after starting the mission. All I had was 40,000 South Korean won, which is about $32, after purchasing an airline ticket to China. Because I was doing the mission as a seminary student, I couldn't get support from any missionary organization or church. I left my wife and 4 children, as well as my elderly mother, to the Lord to do the mission. I just trusted the Lord for everything. Before departing for China, I visited President Wan Kim of Chongshin Theological Seminary with Assistant Pastor Chang An-gu, who was the chairman of the university's Graduation Preparation Committee. President Kim asked, "Have you been able to secure financial support for the mission?" "No, sir, but I trust that God will provide." All I was able to secure was an airline ticket. President Kim, who used to live in America, had a hard time understanding me and asked, "What about your family?" "I am trusting in God to take care of them." This was all I could say. We only had a bag of rice and some 30,000 won, which is $24, but I was not worried at all. Do you know the verse in the Bible that says that one who doesn't provide for his immediate family is worse than an unbeliever? Because President Kim had lived in America for a long time, he always talked about all standby missions. Dear President, most Korean missionaries go with just the word of God in their hands with the belief that the Lord will do it. Even Jesus said as he was sending out his disciples, "Do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts." Matthew chapter 10, verse 9. I trust in his words. After saying this, I said to myself, There is no mention in the Bible that you're supposed to raise 50 million or 100 million won before you go to a mission field. After this conversation, we prayed together for a while, and President Kim promised to send 200,000 won, about $160, to my family every month. As I was leaving for China the next day, I said to God in prayer that I will give him all my money. But since I had only 40,000 won, about $32, after squandering all of my family's fortune, I felt guilty before God. So I made this prayer to God. God, I will give you my life as well. A few days later, the monthly living expense that I had received for the short-term mission ran out. I was very lonely and suffocating inside, as if I were all alone on a vast sea. I spent the last of my money on bus fare to go see missionary Peter Park in Changchun. We ran out of mission funds. We need 1,500 yuan, about $180 a month for food. Could you help us? Missionary Peter flat out refused. Please don't ask me for money. As you all know, I don't have any money. Please don't look toward me or any person for money. Ask God directly and receive it from Him. I returned to the mission center and fell on my bed. It was hard enough because of the students, but instead of giving me any encouragement whatsoever, he had treated me so cold-heartedly. I cried bitterly while feeling lonely and sad. There was no one I could turn to in this vast land of China. Only the Lord understood my heart. Lord, I moaned on the bed and cried loudly. I said I was thankful for everything. Then I said it was too hard. I kept crying, not knowing how to stop. When I finally got up, it was already the next day and bright outside. Only a few minutes were left before I had to wake up the brothers and start the daily lessons. Let's fast. After the morning Bible reading, it was lunchtime. Hey, stop eating so fast. Are you eating for someone who's starved to death? Brother, just eat your meal, then talk. This guy does his best only when he's eating. This kind of kidding and banter made mealtime the most pleasant part of the day at the mission center. The brothers were always happy during meals, even if they were having an awful day. However hard this Bible reading may be, I can still bear it because of this white steamed rice, Brother Moody said. It was one of his routine mealtime comments, so I was only half listening to him while I enjoyed the banter among the brothers when Moody got my full attention with a sudden question. Teacher! I'm sorry, I should have called you missionary. But what does a missionary do? I was suddenly at a loss for words. I didn't know how to start to explain it to someone who had no background or context for the concept of missionaries and their work. Before I could even try to organize a reply, Brother Moody's next question sort of answered his first. Is it someone who gathers people like us and makes them do Bible readings? I don't understand why this Bible reading is so hard for me. I can't follow the words coming out of the cassette player. Brother Moody's eyes were wide open as he looked at me sorrowfully without meaning any harm. Yes, I understand, I told him. Even though you cannot understand it now, if you continue, you will come to understand. Please don't be discouraged and continue to listen. But missionary, have you ever seen an American? Yes, I have. What do they look like since you have seen them? Missionary, did you know if there's ever a war between North Korea and America, that our country can easily beat them? Did you know that? He was speaking very sincerely as if he were reading something sacred. I was having a hard time holding back my laughter. Haha, yes, I know. I understand, I told him. Brother Moody smiled and very proudly told the others, Hey guys, I was right, didn't I tell you? The missionary. Why am I always confused? Anyway, he said it. He said he knows. All the brothers suddenly stared at me, seeming to ask if it was true, so I smiled and nodded my head. Missionary, those Yankees, why are they giving North Korea such a hard time? Why can't they just leave us alone? Why do they keep freezing our economy through embargoes and constantly sending arms to South Korea to make our lives so difficult? Is it true that Americans live so well because they made so much money selling the scalps of Native Americans? Their questions were endless. After listening to their questions, I felt once again that these brothers really needed me. After the evening Bible reading and prayer, the atmosphere at the mission center became very bright. I feel safe. If it had ended 1 minute later, I probably would have died, exclaimed Brother Moody as he stretched his whole body. All the other brothers were about to get up and head to bed. With a heavy heart, I made the announcement. Let us fast for the next 3 days. The mood in the mission center changed instantly. Brother Calvin, who had his hand on the doorknob to leave the room, looked at me wide-eyed. Brother Power froze halfway in getting up and frowned as he looked at me. Missionary, did we run out of rice? Is it the money that ran out? Is it true? Is this real? Teacher, please. Questions poured out from all sides. What are you talking about, teacher? Brother Moody asked. Teacher, couldn't you think about it from our perspective just once? Do you know why we came here? We came all the way here and are suffering like dogs just because we didn't want to go hungry and die. And you are saying now that we shouldn't eat, and not just for 1 day, but for 3 days? Right after Brother Moody finished, Brother Sunju spoke up. Shoot, you made us read a book that we had never heard of or seen before, and now you're telling us not to eat? Does this make any sense? Brother Ikdu then spoke angrily. Teacher, aren't you South Korean? Call South Korea at least once. If they can't help us, then we will have no choice, but you haven't even called them once. The mission center was about to be overcome by the clamor of the brothers. Assistant Pastor Martyr and Assistant Pastor Chun were frightened by the commotion. It was hard. I had not expected them to understand the situation, but their resistance and reaction were far worse than my expectations. I spoke with a heavy heart. I am a servant of God. We don't have to ask people for money. I believe that God will most certainly give us the food if we pray before Him. Because I am an assistant pastor, even if I call South Korea, there's no one there who will send us the money. Even if there is someone, I will still pray before God and receive it from Him instead of asking people for help. As soon as I finished, Brother Ikdu started to shriek, beginning with a string of curses. I don't want to do this anymore. This mission center, or whatever it is, I don't want to live in this place anymore. I am going to leave. He slammed the door of the Bible reading room shut behind him and went outside. He must have been very mad because he kept shouting outside. North Koreans hate being hungry more than anything else. They escaped North Korea and risked their lives to travel this far for the sole purpose of escaping hunger. They left their families because they were hungry and lost their beloved children to hunger. Their suffering is summed up in one word: hunger. It was hunger that led them into the mission center. Their protests were only natural because they had even stopped drinking and smoking and were persevering each day. However, I had no choice. When the Lord was leading the situation at the mission center toward fasting, what could I do? Shoot, I'm going to leave too. I can't live at a place like this. Can't drink, can't smoke. Now we can't even eat. How am I supposed to live? Let's leave. Brother Moody walked out angrily from the Bible reading room as well. None of them wanted to believe that God provides. Brother Power came close to me and asked quietly with a frightened voice, Teacher, don't you die when you don't eat anything for 3 days? Do you actually live? Brother Power, when you were living in North Korea, didn't you ever go hungry? I smiled as I asked him. Of course. I went hungry countless times, but I never went 3 straight days without eating anything. In North Korea, if you don't eat anything for 3 days, you die. Even the ones who are quite strong die of hunger. So how can you expect someone to live without eating anything for 3 days? Brother Power, you don't have to worry. When you fast, even if you don't eat anything for 40 days instead of 3 days, you still live. You actually become healthier after you fast. Despite my explanation, he didn't believe me and quietly left the room with his shoulders drooped very low. I was very worried that they might all leave. However, the next morning, they were all there. Instead of the angry outbursts of the night before, they all gave in and quietly followed the daily schedule and began to fast. My heart was hurting even more looking at this change in their attitude. I would have felt better if they protested loudly like the night before. On the third day of our fast, the head deacon of Kwang Church in Jiangmifang, Jilin, came to our mission center to visit his son's friend, Brother Kwang. We talked with him for a while before lunchtime. Then, instead of having lunch, we had a prayer meeting. Because he joined us in the prayer meeting, he found out that we had been fasting for 3 days because we had no money. He burst into tears and said, "Oh, my goodness. How can this happen in this day and age? How can you starve because you have no rice, especially here at this mission place for North Koreans? As long as I live, I will provide food for you so that you don't have to starve, so don't worry about it from now on." The head deacon kept his promise and provided food for us throughout the time we were in Jilin. Oh, God did provide because we prayed. Teacher, is this what you call answered prayer? Wow, God must exist for real. He delivered just in time. The brothers were jumping up and down with joy. I was amazed to see them all believe this had to have been from God because at another time, they would have considered what happened as pure coincidence. This was what the Lord did during our fasting. After the fast, I often noticed that someone was hiding food here and there at the mission center. My heart ached with each discovery. My heart ached with each discovery. My heart ached with each discovery. A few days later, Brother Kangu left the mission center after a heated argument with instructor Kwang Ho. I was sad, but I couldn't do anything because it was an issue between the North Koreans. When I asked where he was going to go, he said he didn't have any place to go. Also, Brother Choi left the mission center, saying he needed to go to North Korea to bring his family. Although I hoped his family would come over and receive the Lord somewhere in China, I was worried for him. I tearfully prayed that the Lord would protect him as he left for North Korea.